Zavla tzav, zavla tzav, kavla kav, kavla kav, za'ir sham, za'ir sham. What does that mean? Stick around and find out. Hello, everybody. This is Gilgamesh, and this is part 2 of Isaiah chapter 28. In our first chapter, we talked about the drunkards of Ephraim. And in this section, we're going to change subjects quite a bit, and we're going to talk about teaching children. Now, there are a number of different takes on what this section actually means, and I'll try and bring out the main ideas in all of it. But what you heard at the beginning is a very interesting sing-song rhyme that seems to appear in the text here. And we'll talk about why it's there and what it might mean. We start here in verse 9. And we say, "To whom will he teach knowledge? And to whom will he explain the message?" There's disagreement over the antecedent of he in this verse. Some people believe that it refers to the drunken prophets from the last section, and therefore they come up with a very different interpretation of what follows. I don't believe that's correct. I believe these are a set of small, short, independent poems, and especially given what we see later on in this small section, I think this has to be a reference to the Lord himself. Who is the Lord going to teach knowledge, and to whom will he explain the message or the thing that is to be heard? And these questions then are answered by the following lines. Those who are weaned from milk, those who are taken from the breast. Now, some pose these two lines as a question. I don't think they are questions. I believe they can be better read as the answer to the questions that were just asked of who do you teach? This is consistent with other Isaiah verses where he places children, particularly little children, in leadership positions. So he's asking here, who shall he teach the message to? And we're saying to the small, to the babies. And then we proceed with this very sing-songy sort of line here. Tzav l'tzav, tzav l'tzav, kav l'kav, kav l'kav, za'ir sham, za'ir sham. Even if you don't speak Hebrew, you can hear this is very repetitive and very sing-songy. Translators didn't quite know what to do with it, and there are different ideas as to what it means. The King James translation, which is fairly influential, translated as for precept upon precept, precept upon precept, line upon line, line upon line, there a little, there a little. Okay, that's not quite the King James. I modified it a little bit to be a little more literal, but that's the idea of what the King James translated this as. Others believe that maybe it's just supposed to be nonsense babbling. And if that's the case, whose nonsense babbling is it supposed to be? One thought is that it is the nonsense babbling of a child who can't speak, that these are just supposed to be childlike sounds. Another thought is that it's supposed to be the nonsense babbling of hearing a foreign language, that these are the Assyrian invaders who are going to come in and they're going to be speaking this incomprehensible thing that nobody can understand. Another very interesting thought that I actually ran into in the lexicon, it says, in all likelihood, Kav and Tzav are old names for letters of the alphabet, which a teacher would use in lessons here in Isaiah with mocking significance. Okay, that's an interesting thing, that the letters Sadi and Kof, I guess, would actually have been Tzav and Kav back in the day. I don't know of anything that truly supports that. It's highly speculative. But the other idea here is that the word tzav is a shortening of tzava, which is to command. That it is related to mitzvot, that these are divine commands. And so it is command to command, command to command. And then kav is actually a fairly normal word, not really a common word, but it's a normal word that means a line, a measuring line. And not only is it a normal word, it's a word that shows up later in this chapter. And so we have here this idea of kav lekav, line to line, line to line. And so the interpretation, if you follow the King James's sort of translation here, is that this is, you're teaching a child, maybe through a child's rhyme or a child's song, and you're teaching them commandment and commandment, principle and principle, or measuring line, measuring line. And then what really makes me think that this is not babbling is the final bit here, Za'er Sham, Za'er Sham. This is a little bit, a small little bit. It also can mean young, a child's bit. Little bit there, a little bit there. Most translations don't like the repetition, so they go a little bit here, a little bit there, but it's the exact preposition. A little bit there, a little bit there. But this really makes me think that this is not intended to just be babbling here, but these are actually some type of a sing-songy rhyme about teaching children just a little bit at a time. We then go on with this in verse 11, and we say, "For by stammering lips and with a foreign tongue he will speak to this people." And so what does this mean here? Now, this word for stammering, it's not related to any of the words for stumbling that we had previously in the last 8 verses. This is a word we don't entirely know the meaning of, but it seems to be that it could be relating to the tongue twister type nature of this rhyme. It also could be relating to the somewhat comical nature of this line, as this word is sometimes associated with laughing, usually in a scornful way, but still laughing. And so when we say here with stammering lips, this might just mean with a tricky phrase. And when we say another tongue, the Hebrew word here for another is acheret, and it really means a foreign tongue, a strange tongue, an other tongue. We're saying here something that sounds foreign, something that is maybe something that is hard to say, but that's how we're going to teach, is with this stammering foreign bit of speech. That's how he will speak to his people. Again, who's the he in this? It appears, I think, especially from this point forward, to be the Lord, that the Lord will speak to the people from the time they are children through these songs and the rhymes that they have learned. Then it goes on here in verse 12, to whom he has said, this is rest. Give rest to the weary, and this is repose. And they did not want to hear. So he has told them that what he is offering is the rest and the peace that they're looking for, but they don't want to receive the message. This was started out with, who shall help them understand the thing which he wants them to hear? Here they're saying they do not want to hear it. So he's teaching children, he's teaching them with simple concepts, with simple rhymes, but they're not listening. And then we repeat the rhyme. It says here, starting in verse 13, and the word of the Lord will be to them. Tzav la-tzav, tzav la-tzav, kav la-kav, kav la-kav, za'ir sham, za'ir sham. Precept upon precept, precept upon precept, line upon line, line upon line, there a little, there a little. So the word of the Lord comes back to them as this thing that they learned when they were children. This simple concept of something that probably their mothers taught them as some of their first learning. This is how the word of the Lord will be unto them. And why will it be this way? Because they walk and stumble backward and are smashed and snared and taken. Now the word because here, the Hebrew word is lama'an, and this word can be translated in a couple of different ways. The King James Version, instead of translating it as because they walk, it translates it as that they may go, suggesting the way the King James puts it together that their stumbling and being smashed and taken is because of the word of the Lord, which doesn't seem to fit to me. The Hebrew word lama'an means sort of on account of, or for the sake of. It can often be translated simply as because. It's not necessarily indicating that this is a consequence of what precedes it, but that it is related to what precedes it. What precedes it is because of this action. So this message that they learned as children comes back to them because they walk and then stumble and are smashed and taken, like in a trap, snared, and then taken away by their enemies. This is what they're going to find themselves in, is that they will be imprisoned. Their choices will cause them to stumble, and they will find themselves captured. And the word of the Lord will come back to them as they learned it at their mother's breast, of line upon line, precept upon precept, here a little, there a little, and this will come back to them and ultimately save them. And that's how I interpret this. Do you think that it is more of a babbling that is supposed to be a foreign language? Do you think this is supposed to be intended to be more negative than I interpret it? Let me know in the comments. I'd be interested to hear your thoughts and why you feel that way. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this, and join us by liking and subscribing so that you can see the next section coming up soon.